Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this historic day. It's an honor to be here with all of you. When the President asked me to serve in this role, we talked about the importance of bringing truth and transparency back to the briefing room. And he asked me to ensure we are communicating about the policies across the Biden-Harris administration and the work his team is doing every single day on behalf of all American people. There will be times when we see things differently in this room, among all of us. That's okay. That's part of our democracy, and rebuilding trust with the American people will be central to our focus in the press office and in the White House every single day. So we had a very busy and active day today, as you all know, but I wanted to take a moment to go through the 15 executive actions, or highlights of them, I should say, and some of the steps that the President asked agencies to take today. You should have all received copies of the executive orders as well as the accompanying fact sheets, but I want to take this moment to highlight them for the American public who are watching at home. To combat the deadly virus, the President launched his 100-day masking challenge, asking Americans to do their part and mask up for 100 days. He's doing his part as well, issuing a mask mandate that will require anyone visiting a federal building or federal land or using certain modes of public transportation to wear a mask. He signed an executive order reversing Trump's decision to withdraw from the World Health Organization. This will strengthen our own efforts to get the pandemic under control by improving global health. And tomorrow, we're not wasting any time, Dr. Fauci will participate remotely in the meeting of the World Health Organization as the U.S. head of delegation. President Biden also officially appointed a COVID-19 response coordinator, a position and team we had already previously announced, but made it official today, to create a unified national response to the pandemic. And he reestablished the national security team responsible for global health, security, and biodefense. The COVID-19 pandemic has triggered an almost unprecedented housing affordability crisis. He took immediate action to confront the crisis and asked relevant agencies to extend nationwide moratoriums on evictions and foreclosures. The pandemic has also increased the hardship on millions of Americans who owe federal student loans. In response, the President asked the Department of Education to extend the pause on student loan payments and interest. He rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement, putting the United States back in a position to exercise global leadership in advancing the objectives of the ambitious agreement. Sorry, hope you're comfortable. There's a few more. And a second broad executive order will roll back harmful regulatory reversals made by the previous administration to protect public health and the environment. This order protects our nation's treasures by reviewing the boundaries for several national monuments, places a temporary moratorium on all oil and natural gas leasing in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and reestablishes the interagency working group on the social cost of greenhouse gases. He also launched a whole-of-government effort to advance racial equity and root out systemic racism from federal programs and institutions. He directed the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with the Attorney General, to take all appropriate actions to preserve and fortify DACA, which provides temporary relief from deportation to Dreamers, young people who were brought to this country as children. The President also put an end to the Muslim ban, a policy rooted in religious animus and xenophobia. He signed a proclamation effective immediately, halting further funding or construction of the previous administration's border wall and terminating the so-called national emergency used to wastefully divert billions for wall construction. Also today, President Biden sent an immigration bill to Congress. The U.S. Citizenship Act modernizes our immigration system. It provides hardworking people who've enriched our communities and lived here for decades an opportunity to earn citizenship. The President's priority reflected in the bill are to responsibly manage the border, keep families together, grow our economy, address the root causes of migration from Central America, and ensure that America can remain a refuge for those fleeing prosecution. With that, I'd love to take your questions. Zeke, why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Jen. First off, congratulations. And one question about your role. You touched on this a little bit at the top, but When you were up there, do you see yourself, your primary role is promoting the interests of the president, or are you there to provide us the unvarnished truth so that we can share that with the American people?
Well, let me first say, Zeke, that I come to this podium having served both in the White House and at the State Department as the spokesperson there. And I traveled the world on trips to promote democracy, where I saw the power of the United States and, of course, the power of this podium and the power of truth and the importance of setting an example of engagement and transparency. So I will just state, because you gave me the opportunity, I have deep respect for the role of a free and independent press in our democracy and for the role all of you play. As I noted earlier, there will be moments when we disagree, and there will certainly be days where we disagree for extensive parts of the briefing even perhaps, but we have a common goal, which is sharing accurate information with the American people. If the president were standing here with me today, he would say he works for the American people. I work for him, so I also work for the American people. But his objective and his commitment is to bring transparency and truth back to government, to share the truth even when it's hard to hear. And that's something that I hope to deliver on in this role as well.
President Biden said that he received a very generous letter from President Trump. Of course, he said it was private. He said, I will not talk about it until I talk to him. Is President Biden planning to call now former President Trump? And is this White House working in any way to try to put the two in touch?
Well, I think, Peter, that was a reflection of President Biden's view, and I was with him when he was reading the letter in the Oval Office right before he signed the executive actions, was that this is a letter that was private, as he said to you all. It was both generous and gracious, and it was just a reflection of him not planning to release the letter unilaterally, but I wouldn't take it as an indication of a pending call with the former president.
Let me ask you on policy, if I can, quickly. You talk, obviously, your role is sort of in terms of delivering the best information to the American people on behalf of this White House. The battle for truth may be as tough a fight right now as is the battle against coronavirus. How do you and President Biden plan to combat disinformation that in many ways led to that assault we witnessed 2 weeks ago today on the Capitol?
Well, I think, Peter, there are a number of ways to combat misinformation. One of them is accurate information and truth and data and sharing information even when it is hard to hear and even when it is not meeting the expectations of people at home who are desperate for this crisis to be over. We'll have more to share with you in the next few days, hopefully before the weekend, but what we plan to do is not just return these daily briefings Monday through Friday, not Saturdays and Sundays, I'm not a monster, but also to return briefings with our health officials and public health officials. We want to do those regularly in a dependable way with data shared with all of you and with the public so that they can also track progress we're making on getting the pandemic under control.
So if President Biden wants a theme of his presidency to be unifying the country, does he think that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer should drop a potentially divisive Senate impeachment trial?
Well, he spoke today, as you all saw, about unity in his inaugural address and the importance of unity in bringing the country together and the resolve of the American people in helping to get through this moment. You know, we are confident, though, that just like the American people can, the Senate can also multitask, and they can do their constitutional duty while continuing to conduct the business of the American people. And his view is that the way to bring the country together is to address the problems we're facing. And so that means getting this COVID relief package through, having Democrats and Republicans take a serious look at that and have conversations with each other about how to move it forward. And he's going to leave the mechanics, the timing, and the specifics of how Congress moves forward on impeachment to them.
Does President Biden believe that President Trump needs to be held accountable for the Capitol insurrection a couple of weeks ago? And does that accountability require that President Trump be barred from holding future federal office?
Well, Zeke, you know, he has spoken very firmly and fiercely, publicly, about his views of the horrific events on January 6th. And he has also, of course, spoken with members of Congress about that, as you all know. but he is going to leave it to members of Congress to carry out their constitutional duty and determine what the path forward is and what the mechanisms are going to be, what the process will be, and what the timeline will be. Certainly, he ran against Donald Trump because he did not think he was fit to serve in office long before the events of January 6th. He is here today because he decided to run against him, but we're focusing on moving forward. We're focusing on addressing the issues facing the American public, and as you know, that means we're focused on our COVID package.